pipeline. So, Mr. Prime Minister, I hope you're going to be able to do that competing pipeline. And we are already talking to the European Union about building anywhere from 9 to 11 ports, which they will pay for, so that we can ship our LNG over to various parts of Europe, and that will be more competition.
Blake, what is so interesting about this is you can see the intraday picture of natural gas. You see the dip that it took right there. It's kind of middling around. It's certainly higher than where we started the day, but natural gas is coming off the highs. It had been up about 1%. Now it's up 0.5%. And I do just want to point out that it was Phil Flynn, our oil expert in Chicago, who had said last week, really important to note that you can talk all you want, Liz, about Europe buying our natural gas, but they need more terminals. Sure enough, at least if the president is correct on this, they will be committed to building more terminals. Blake, so that's interesting.
Yeah, and you gotta wonder where exactly those would be, right? When you talk about the European Union, it is a group of countries, some of which are on the water, some of which are clearly not. So where might these 9 to 11 ports go? Again, like I said, we're going to start asking some questions.
Well, let's ask Phil Flynn. I guess Phil's in. This is great. Phil, you're in front of the camera right now for the floor show. Right. What do you think about that? We hadn't heard the real granularity of what was really struck as far as deals were concerned with the European Union last week when he stood there with Jean-Claude Juncker, head of the European Commission. But what do you make of this news?
Well, I mean, obviously, at some point, they're going to have to build these ports if they're going to be a major importer of U.S. LNG. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the biggest criticisms that President Trump got after that statement. It's like, great, that sounds like a wonderful goal, but that's not going to happen overnight. But if there is a commitment by Europe to actually start building these plants to import more LNG, that is going to send a strong signal to the Soviet Union and actually make a lot of sense. The bottom line is that Europe has been too dependent on Russia for its natural gas supplies. And we know from the past that natural gas has been used as a weapon by Russia against countries in the European region. They've cut off supplies when they don't like when things are happening. So from a strategic viewpoint and from an economic viewpoint, this really makes great sense for the EU, and it makes great sense for the U.S. energy industry that is now going to be the world's biggest producer of natural gas, is and will continue to be so. Cheniere,
of course, would be a real recipient in the future of that, because that's the company that really exports most of the LNG that we have here. I want to bring in, wait, who have we got? Oh, Scott. We've got Scott and Alan. Let's bring you guys into the discussion, broaden this out. We've got a market today that looks pretty ugly in red. Do we blame Facebook and what happened last week to Facebook on all of this, or what's really going on? Because we've got a great calendar ahead of us. Not to mention that the Federal Reserve goes behind closed doors tomorrow for a 2-day meeting. Here's the calendar. Lots of earnings. CBS, on Thursday. We got the controversy there that Charlie Gasparino's working the phones on. But, Scott, you take it first here.
Well, you said it. Actually, last week it started when Facebook missed and surprised the street. You also had Netflix miss before then. And then on the Amazon good news, okay, they kind of sold it. So tech has lost momentum and went from the darlings to behaving like Sunday slobs. So at this particular point, the NASDAQ is at the 50-day moving average. That's today's low. So can we hold that? Are we closer to the end of this tech correction, or is this just the beginning? I think tomorrow Apple is going to be very important because it's growth and value, not just growth. So if it's good news, they have to continue to buy it. And if it's bad news, they have to also buy it, not just sell it like they've been selling everything.
Yeah, I'm not one to take a day or two together, but we've got these 3 days of the NASDAQ, Alan, that now bring a very unattractive picture for the moment. Facebook's in correction territory, but I'm more interested also looking at what the Fed won't do. We know they probably will not hike rates this time around. The announcement comes Wednesday. I think there's a 97% chance that we leave rates exactly where they are. It's September, where we're seeing a much bigger potential here, 88% chance of tightening rates. We're at about 1 3/4 to 2%. So there's that. The 10-year yield's at 2.97%. Earlier, I saw a print of 2.98%. What does this all mean? It means interest rates are going up.
Well, that's just a fact. We know that. It's going to happen in September. They've been very measured in their pace. They do it each and every quarter, and that looks like that's going to be the plan from here on out. But if you look at the Eurodollar futures, where our short-term rates that we have here over my shoulder, they're stalling once you get out a couple next year. The rates are completely flat. Let's get back to Facebook. Let's talk about Facebook. Their growth is going to slow. That was really guidance. They still made $7 billion for the quarter. So I'm not ready to say it's over for Facebook yet or for tech. We've seen these, these ebbs and flows where the money flows come out of that sector, but they always seem to come back. We'll look to see that happen one more time. But this summer surge has been strong. What I'm paying attention to right now is the sideways action we're seeing in the euro currency for 3 weeks, completely sideways. The dollar has not made new highs, so that's could be a very positive sign if that declines. Okay. And also the VIX is between 12 and 14 for 3 weeks now, going nowhere fast. So let's see what breakout happens next, and that'll probably dictate where the market's going from here.
Yeah, and Morgan Stanley says prepare for a big sell-off. Well, always, right? Good to see all of you.
Always be prepared.
Exactly. Like the Boy Scouts. Great to see you guys. Thanks so much. Remaking the Mexican Grill with the closing bell ringing in 46 minutes and the Dow down about 107. One man racing to get a prop.